Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. Now, our guest today is Meghan Olsgard. Meghan is a life coach, and you can find out more about her and her wonderful work at www.infinitesoulblueprint.com. Welcome, Meghan Olsgard.
Thanks for having me, Catherine. I'm excited.
Well, I think a lot of our audience is going to be very interested in what you have to say. And the reason I think there's going to be a lot of interest, it's my experience. One of the things that I do as a medical intuitive, believe it or not, is I help people figure out what they need to be happy.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things that makes us happy, and there's a lot of ways to sort of fill our well. But one of the most important, I feel, is by life meaning. There's really 3 ways to be happy in life: physical pleasure, eating, drinking, exercising, having sex, moving our bodies in enjoyable ways. Second is what's called soul satisfaction. Now, what's soul satisfying to me may not be soul satisfying to somebody else. So for me, it might be going for a walk in the woods or knitting or reading a wonderful book. And for somebody else, it might be having a beer, watching football on a Sunday afternoon. But the third way to be happy, which is very profound and which is available to all of us, is with life meaning. And that's about what we're going to be talking about with you today, which is really connecting with what our soul is here to do. Because at the end of the day, we are all souls who have bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So Meghan Olsgard, what exactly is a soul blueprint?
So before we come down to earth, we basically sit down with our guides and our spiritual team. We have different soul members that we kind of get together with, and we basically create this blueprint of our life. So the blueprint includes like different things that you want to learn in order to expand your soul and your awareness. So you basically sculpt out kind of these major points in your earth journey that you want to learn. And it basically, you work on a few different challenges in each lifetime. So it kind of, you basically sit down with your spiritual members and kind of sculpt that out.
Okay, it's interesting that you mentioned this because it's my experience as a medical intuitive that everybody has angels. Now,
Yeah.
Whether you call them angels or spiritual guides, they're the same thing. And these angels, you chose them. They're your team. A good way to think about it is they're your advisory board. You're still in charge. So your angels could, recommend and give you soul messages to do something. But if you choose to jump off a cliff or, not listen, then that's on you. Because we all have free will.
Yeah.
And but these angels, these spiritual guides, they're literally in your energy field. And part of what I do is I teach people how to talk to their angels. And when you learn how to talk to your angels, you'll never be lonely again. And when you learn how to talk to your angels, they can give you really good information, including, what am I here to do? And I see so many people who are sick and diseased, and part of their illness is they've disconnected from what they're here to do. Would you agree?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, we definitely have those beings around us. And I forgot to mention too, like when we come into this world, we choose like our parents, we choose where we're born, and we choose the people around us that are going to help us to move forward on our soul's journey.
Yes, I totally agree. And, one of the things that I talk to my clients about is sometimes on one level, somebody may appear to be your greatest enemy or the person who's most. But if you look at it from another level, then you and that individual, you may have a soul agreement, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm going to hurt you so much that you learn how to forgive. Or I'm going to create so many challenges in your life that you become stronger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we, on the other side, we basically sit down with those members, and yeah, so our enemies could actually be our soulmates on the other side, like part of our soul family, just here to teach us, exactly as you just said. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so this soul blueprint. Now, why would someone choose to have so many challenges? And because sometimes you hear about people and their lives are like one drama after another, one tragedy after another,
Yeah.
and just watching it, you think, why did you choose that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's a few reasons. One of the reasons why someone would choose to have a lot of challenges is if they wanted to evolve their soul faster. So if they kind of wanted to get through the lessons a little bit faster, they would choose a very difficult lifetime where they're overcoming these challenges and they're presented with a lot of them. Another reason why someone would choose a lot of challenges and to really go into them really deep is because they're here to teach others. So a lot of times the people that go through very deep things, let's say that you go through like a lot of heartbreak, then that person might end up being someone who teaches people about love and a dating coach. Because they've been through the lessons, they're here to teach others.
I agree. And Megan, and I love interviewing people who have, sort of similar outlooks on things. And I tell my clients this story. I remember a long time ago, I was in some workshop and so somebody started playing a sound. Well, I didn't know what the sound was. Well, it turned out it was the sound a fetus would hear when they were in the womb, and it was literally their mother's heartbeat. And everybody else was oohing and eyeing and just in this wonderful bliss state. And I went into a complete panic. And what that made me realize was, and I just laugh at myself because I know myself pretty well. It's like, I realized that as a soul, I signed up for a lot of challenges. And then as soon as I got incarnated, I was like, oh my God, what did I just agree to do, right?
Yeah, that's how it goes. I always picture, us on the other side being like, I'm going to do all these challenges, and then coming down here and just being like, why did I choose so much?
Yeah, I signed up for this? Are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah. And so, again, being compassionate, because I'm a big believer in being compassionate to yourself. If you are going through a lot of challenges and your life does seem to have been, a veil of sorrow and woe, a really good question to ask yourself is, why did I make this choice? Why did I choose so much, right?
Yeah.
And Megan and I would probably agree that it means that you're a very strong soul.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
If you chose the house in Beverly Hills with, the multi-million-dollar parents who spoiled you rotten, you're probably not all that strong. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel the stronger ones that they choose deeper challenges and more difficult things to get through, for sure.
Yeah. I had a new client in my office this past week, and she had Lyme disease. And I could tell right away that she'd gone through a lot of childhood abuse. And I asked her about whether her parents were still living. And she said, well, my mom died of breast cancer. And that was her way out of dealing with the abuse. And she said, my father, who's a medical doctor, is in jail for sexually abusing one of his patients. And I'm like, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. I said, look at how strong you are. Look at the challenges that you chose to overcome. And, when you look at it this way, it's a very empowering way to look at your life. So rather than looking at yourself as a victim, all this stuff has happened to me and all these evil people are in my life, just realize that everybody who's there, you chose them.
Yeah.
And everything that's happening we know it's happening for a reason, but you chose it. So embrace it and choose to move through it. Don't be flattened by it.
Yeah.
Now, Meghan Olsgard, why do you feel we all have different challenges?
We have different challenges because we want to learn different things. So for example, someone might come into this life and they want to learn patience. So they'll have different challenges than someone else. And someone else might want to learn self-love. So then they'll have different challenges. And we have a lot of lifetimes too. So certain things we might have already learned in a previous lifetime. So therefore we don't need to learn them in this lifetime because we've already covered them. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why sometimes I have a very good friend who has a really charmed life, is a good way to put it. And he's a very kind and giving person, and very, very kind and giving. But I think when I watch him, it is because he's learned so much. He's very generous. He's very forgiving. He's very allowing. And, even though he's not a religious person, he seems to have mastered a great many soul lessons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some of the major soul lessons that you see your clients learning through these various soul challenges, Meghan?
I think the biggest one is self-love. So many people have such a hard time loving themselves. And if a person gets rejected a lot or just kind of feels like they don't fit in, a lot of that has to do with self-love. I found that that's probably the biggest challenge. Yeah. And then we have different ones like compassion, overcoming lack consciousness, just being true to yourself, releasing guilt. Those are all a few of the different challenges that people come here to overcome.
Very interesting. So you feel that the biggest or most common one that you see is learning how to love yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there is on the one hand, there is no perfect, and yet as souls, we're all perfect, right?
Right.
And somebody's always richer, taller, better looking, seems to have more whatever, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of challenges when their main soul lesson is self-love, what are some of the challenges that you see them facing?
A lot of rejection, just feeling like they're not fitting in, just kind of feeling like an outsider. And I notice a lot of people give a lot of love to other people, but then they have a hard time receiving it. So we get a lot of givers that just give, and then that really depletes their energy. And it's about learning how to receive that love back, to have that balance.
Yeah, very interesting. And what I find is in any relationship, there's only 100%. So if you give too much, you're actually depriving the other person of giving. So you want to practice balancing giving and receiving, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And letting love in. And that happens when we learn how to open our heart, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges when their soul lesson is compassion? What are some of the challenges that those people may go through?
Those are just kind of understanding where other people are coming from. Like a lot of times we can judge other people and say, well, why would this person do that? I would never do that. But it's about understanding that everyone is going through their own things. And just because you wouldn't react in a certain way doesn't mean that it's wrong that someone else would react that way. So that's kind of the compassion piece.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, Meghan, because what I find is that this is the way I like to explain it. Yeah. So you know me, you know my name is Catherine, but you weren't there when I was 4 years old. You don't know what happened when I was 4 years old. So when I do something, what happens that we do is we run other people's behaviors through our own file system. So through our own file cabinet. So if you think of my history like a file cabinet with folders, and this is 4 years old, this is 5 years old, and so on. So we observe other people and we run that energy through our own file cabinet. And we think, like you said, well, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that. I would have done it differently. And the extreme example that I like to give is the example of the two brothers, the Russian brothers were born in Russia who blew up the Boston Marathon. Now, there's nothing in my programming that says when I'm angry and upset, I'm going to plant bombs in public places and kill a bunch of people who I've never met, right?
Yeah.
And when we run other people's experiences through our own file cabinet, it's a real problem with energetic toxicity and exhaustion. So my Tai Chi teacher, say that real fast, Tai Chi teacher, he said it really well. He said, other people get to do what they want. You just don't want to be there when it happens. So by developing this quality of compassion and allowing and realizing that everybody in a specific situation, again, even if it seems like a terrific disaster on one level, everybody who's participating on a soul level, they're evolving, they have major lessons, they have soul agreements with one another. It's a whole other way of reframing and recontextualizing what's happening in the world, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you're exactly right. Like people don't, for example, when you're 4 years old, people don't know what someone's gone through. And I know a lot of times too on social media, someone will see this picture, but they have no idea what this person's gone through because maybe they haven't made it public. So it's easy for us to say something without knowing the whole story. So
yeah. And when you take this soul level view of life, it helps you to get out of thinking that life is horrible or that the world is this cruel, awful place. It's like, no, this is a realm of maximum karmic opportunity.
Yeah.
So, like Meghan says, the more challenges you have had in your life, more than likely those are part of your soul blueprint, and they're ways that you have chosen to grow.
Yeah.
What about people who, what kind of lessons people overcoming lack consciousness?
So a lot of people, and that goes back to the self-love piece too, because a lot of people don't feel like they're worthy to have money. So those are the types of things that where they receive, say they get an extra lump sum of money, then all of a sudden something comes up where they need to spend that money. And it's about understanding that they are worthy of receiving that money, and that they're worthy of receiving good things. Like everyone is worthy of receiving anything that they want, and it's just kind of overcoming that.
Yeah. And this lack consciousness that you're talking about is not just about money. It's
Right.
about everything. It's like, and personally, I feel that everybody could benefit from a healing on, I am worthy to experience the best in life. And also deserving, like I deserve the best in life, right?
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing in any spiritual literature that I've ever read that says you need to suffer and be miserable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is, there's plenty of money, there's plenty of love, there's plenty of women or men, depending on your orientation. There's plenty of health available. There's
Right.
nothing that says you have to, be sick and diseased your entire life.
Yep.
Now, what sort of challenges people releasing guilt, what kind of challenges would they experience?
Those are the types of people that feel like they have to say yes to everything. And if they don't, then they feel guilty. But sometimes a person can be so worn down and they have nothing left to give someone else. And them saying yes is just depleting their own energy, basically. And if they're not filled up with energy, then they have nothing to give anyone anyways. So it's about knowing that you can say no and you don't have to feel guilty about it because you're allowed to take care of yourself.
And I think that goes back to what you were talking about, which is the lesson of self-love.
Yeah.
Because when we love ourselves, then we realize, you got to put on your own oxygen mask first. And it's not selfish to take care of your health. It's not selfish to exercise or eat well or take care of your body. Because when your tank is full, then you have so much more to give and share with others, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. If you have nothing in you, then you can't give to anyone.
Now, how, Megan, in your experience, how can we navigate through our challenges much more smoothly?
So I think that goes back to the perspective. So if we understand, it's about understanding. So if we understand that we did choose these things and that there's something for us to learn, I think that helps it smooth out so much faster. And I always say there's a lesson in every challenge, and we just need to find that lesson. So what I do lots of times is I just say to my guides and my angels, please help me to teach me to understand what this situation is trying to teach me so that I can learn it and then move on. And then it comes and goes so much more smoother than resisting it. Once we resist it, then it can be a rocky road.
You know, I couldn't agree more, Megan. And when I'm doing a medical intuitive reading and someone is, you know, working through disease and illness, one of the things that I like to talk to them about is what's the message, what's the lesson behind this illness? Because the sooner you get that lesson, then you don't need the teacher anymore, right?
Right.
And yeah. I remember one time I had a client, I kid you not, who'd had cancer, I'm not making this up, who'd had cancer 6 times. And I was just like, he actually moved from Boston to Atlanta to work with me. And I remember thinking, dear God, why me? Because it was very complicated. Yeah. You know, you think, well, isn't having cancer once, isn't that enough fun already? You know, and you have to do it like 5 more times. Like, what's that about, right? So yeah, so when you're going through these challenges, really ask yourself, you know, what's the lesson? And the more you get the metaphysical, the deeper inner meaning of the challenges, then the faster you can just let it all go.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
Now, Megan, if we have a soul blueprint, then how does free will factor into it?
So it's up to us to choose if we want to learn these things. So you can have this blueprint and you can come down to earth and just decide, you know what, I don't want to do any of these challenges, and you don't have to. It's completely up to you. But doing these challenges will bring you joy because that's what your higher self wants. So, and it's also up to you how you want to get through the challenges. So you have the free will to choose. Do I want this to be a rocky road or a smooth road? And it's always your free will. Like, your guides and your spiritual team will always nudge you to your soul's blueprint, but it's up to you how you want to navigate that, or if you want to navigate it at all.
Now, Meghan Olsgard, how do you think someone could go about figuring out what their soul's blueprint, life mission, passion project is? Because they're all interchangeable terms for the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. So those are the types of things that if you ask yourself different questions, like, what would I do if I didn't have to work? What would I be doing? What could I talk about all day that really excites me, that I could just go on and on about? What did I enjoy doing as a kid, and why did I enjoy doing it? Because there might be a little things in there too. And just what do you enjoy learning about? I know for me, I'm constantly learning about things. So if someone asks themselves, basically, what am I doing in my spare time? What excites me? What lights me up?
Right. What really fills my tank?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would I do if money was no object?
Yeah.
Right. And I want to talk to you because so many people, they feel that their soul blueprint or their life mission has something to do with their work. And I sometimes it can, right? Like for me, I feel that my life mission is, of course, about healing. And I'm very passionate about that. And that it does happen to be something that I do for a living. But what is your experience about the correlation between what people are doing for a living and their soul blueprint? Because personally, I feel you could be a garbage man and be completely on fire about your soul mission.
Yeah, they definitely can be different things. For example, someone's soul blueprint might just be to be the best mother that they can be, and their blueprint might have to do with raising this child, and it might have nothing to do with their work. So sometimes, like you said, it is related to work. Other times, it might just be about being a good parent or being a good person in the world, even though it has nothing to do with your work.
Right. And how do we, because again, I think so many people also, they haven't found the work that sets them on fire. You know, they have a job, it's making money, it's paying the bills, but they're bored out of their mind. One of my clients yesterday, he said, I just got 3 new clients and somebody else might be happy. But for me, it's like, oh my God, I've got more homework. You know, it's like, rather than making him full of joy, it's like, oh my God, I've got more work.
Yeah.
So what do people do if they're in a job and they're finding themselves deeply unfulfilled?
Yeah, and that happens quite often. I do have to say, so lots of times the job will be teaching you something. So that kind of goes back to asking your angels, why am I here? What is this job teaching me that I need to learn to move forward, basically? And then thinking about those things. What excites me? What do I enjoy doing? What do I love talking about all day long? What would I do if I had all the money in the world? But understanding too that there is probably something in that job that you need to learn before you move forward, and just asking to be shown it.
Yeah. Well, in the example of the client that I was talking to yesterday, he was an attorney and he worked by himself. And I said, you are an extrovert and you need to be around other people in order to fill your well. And so sometimes I think that we're presented with different situations so that we can, by the absence of something, we can see how important it is, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. The contrast really helps us to define what we do want.
Yes. So, and I said to him, I said, well, you're too isolated. I said, you're never going to be happy as long as you're working by yourself. And I said to him, I said, you're best working in a team. You know, so if you think about team, you know, there's a group of equals and everybody's got a different perspective and different talents, but we all work together. So I remember recently, a couple of months ago, I had to be on a jury duty, and it was a lawsuit about between a used car salesman and a lady who bought the car, and I was so bored. I kept falling asleep, and the judge gently said something, and the bailiff would come over and tap on my shoulder. And the only thing that was happy about the day or really interesting was eating lunch. And it made me think. I said, you know, so many people, this is what their life is like. That, you know, there's no wonder there's so many addictions, because people have disconnected from the soul meaning behind their work.
Yeah, I completely agree. They're looking for something else to kind of fulfill them, because they're not getting that fulfillment what they're doing right now.
And whereas I could spend a morning doing what I do, and I'm so happy, I'm so on fire, I'm so deeply fulfilled by it. Now, what do you think, Meghan, would hold someone back from following their soul's blueprint?
I think one of the biggest things is fear, because fear of the unknown. So your current situation, your past is all very familiar, so therefore very comforting. But we don't know what the future holds. So a lot of times it's just that fear. It's just, I don't know what this opportunity is going to be. So that fear will hold them back. Another thing are core beliefs. So a lot of times we pick up these beliefs from childhood or from past lives, beliefs such as, I'm not worthy to have what I want. So that can be something also that's holding someone back, just a belief. And the third thing, which kind of factors into all of them, is feeling unworthy. So like I said, someone not feeling like they deserve to basically live according to their soul blueprint and have what they want.
Yeah, and you know, I would add another one, which is your childhood programming. So many of us, you know, what we're here to do is truly out of the box. And if you're programmed, to grow up in a certain socioeconomic group and drive this kind of car and do this kind of work and have 2.3 children and, so on and so forth, and yet your soul is, calling you to move to another country and do, live a totally different lifestyle, it can be very confronting, right?
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And the things we're taught when we're little don't always have to be what we're going to do. Like, I don't remember being taught about entrepreneurship when I was little. And so you think, well, life has to be this certain way. And then you grow up and you're like, no, it doesn't have to be. I can choose to do something different than what I was taught. But often, yeah, that can hold someone back thinking it's wrong, or they're not supposed to do it for some reason, or even just being afraid of disappointing someone, like disappointing their parents or their spouse or people in their lives.
Right. And I think a really good way to sort of decipher all that is to ask yourself, what does my tribe want me to be? And what messages did my child receive about what I'm supposed to be when I grow up, right?
Yeah.
And, you sit down with those messages, and some of those messages may make sense to you, and you may, feel in alignment with those messages. But, other times you say, it's kind of like when you put on a pair of pants that don't quite fit right. It's like, maybe I could wear this, but it doesn't feel good, and so on, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now, Meghan, Olsgard, how do we know when we're actually living our soul's blueprint? Like, what do we experience when we're in alignment with what our soul is here to do?
So our higher self is always guiding us to follow our blueprint, and that basically makes us feel good inside. So when you feel excited, when you wake up in the morning and you're excited for the day, that's kind of showing that you're on that path. Things that kind of show that you're not on the path would be like if you're feeling drained at the end of the day, if you're just feeling like, there's something else I should be doing, even though I'm not sure what it is. I feel like there's something else. But always by following your excitement kind of shows that you're on the right path.
Yeah. And, boredom is a big one. Like when I was in the jury trial listening to, a 2-hour discussion on, fenders, fender damage. I think that was just to show me how much I love what I do.
Yeah.
Again, boredom, whenever you're bored, that just means you're not doing what you want to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And also, time does stand still when you're not doing your purpose, when you're bored, and time goes like so much faster when you are doing that. So if you notice, oh my gosh, where did those 2 hours just go? That's a good indication that you're on your path. But if your 1 hour feels like 10, then that's an indication that maybe this isn't something that aligns with your path.
Yeah, kind of like this interview. It seems to be just like speeding past.
For sure. Yeah.
Fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So how would someone overcome the blocks to their soul's blueprint? So if they realize I'm not in alignment with what my soul is here to do, how do we go about overcoming those challenges that keep us from what our soul is here to do?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of different things we can do. A good one is always just meditate on it. Meditate on what you're here to do, and just really try and be open to receiving those answers. Sometimes it's good to talk to someone else, talk to an expert, consult someone who may be able to get you a deeper insight into what you're supposed to be doing, and really just paying attention to the things around you. So are you hearing things that are really like conversations with people around you that are really lighting you up and really interest you? Those might have to do with your soul path.
Yeah. And, I find, Meghan, that a lot of times when we're not following our soul blueprint, it actually manifests as disease. So yesterday I was doing a healing. A client came in. She said, I want you to help me with my hearing. I'm like, okay, fine. Well, I checked her ears. Her right ear was, hearing 92% of what was said. It's like, okay, pretty good. Okay, doesn't get too much better than that. But the problem was her left ear. And the left ear is how we actually hear ourselves. And I said to her, the problem is you're not listening to your inner voice. Right? And she's like, oh yeah, I've been getting these promptings to do certain things, but I just wasn't listening. I wasn't following through. Right?
Yeah.
And it's my feeling that our soul is always in charge. I mean, there's never a second where your soul is not in charge. Yeah. And, I always say when you listen and pay attention, God only has to tap you on the shoulder, or your angels only have to tap you on the shoulder. And, but when you're not listening, that's when you get hit by the truck, and end up in the ICU and, or you're lying on a table in the mental hospital saying, what am I doing with my life? Right? Why am I here? Right?
Yeah. If we don't listen, then we'll get those big wake up calls. And I do find people do push, they know what they're supposed to be doing. They'll push it down. And like you said, it will manifest as disease because we're not listening to what our soul is saying. And we try and rationalize it in our head. And we always go to our head and try and figure it out. Whereas if you connect to your heart space, it's like, that's what your soul knows. And it's about, just being brave enough to follow that guidance and listen when it comes so that we don't have to get hit by a truck. Yeah.
I also find that this is a big cause of fatigue. And the reason is it takes a lot of energy to suppress energy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give an example. So let's say that, deep inside of you that you have a different sexual orientation. Well, the more you try and suppress who you really are, again, that can manifest as all kinds of disease. And it's exhausting to try and be somebody who you're not, right?
Yep. Yeah, I agree. This is a kind of an example about me, but I know I used to get some social anxiety and my face would get red and I couldn't figure out why. And then really trying to figure it out, I figured out it's because when I wasn't being true to myself, that would almost come to the surface. Every time I was being true to myself and speaking my truth, I would be perfectly fine. So it definitely does come to show us our bodies works with our mind.
Yeah. And I was also, in addition to exhaustion, I think it's exhausting when you're trying to suppress what your soul is really here to do. The other big emotion is actually, I feel anxiety, which again, it's a lot of times people feel anxious and they don't even know why am I so anxious?
Yeah.
Because, well, when you're feeling anxious, a good question to ask is, how and where am I disconnected from my true soul purpose? What do you think about that, Meghan?
Yeah, I agree. Because that's kind of where I know lots of people will get the anxiety in their stomach, right around their solar plexus. And that's where all your power comes from. So that anxiety is showing you that, you're not following your personal power and there's something going on in there. The anxiety is a big one. And the thoughts in our head can create that anxiety. If we're having a battle in our head between, should I follow this path or that one, that can definitely create that anxiety.
Yeah. And so it takes a tremendous amount of courage to sit there and with those uncomfortable feelings and ask ourselves, what is this about? And, here at the Natural Healing Show, we talk about empowering people with natural solutions. And one of them is just simply being present with yourself and asking yourself, what's the meaning? What's this about? What is my soul prompting me to do? Because if your soul is really prompting you to do something and to step outside your comfort zone, again, you could medicate yourself with all kinds of drugs, legal and illegal, and yet your soul is still going to be trying to give you the message. So numbing yourself I feel can actually make things worse and can compound the problem.
Yeah, it's just like putting a Band-Aid on instead of getting to the core of the problem. And you're just going to keep putting Band-Aids on, and eventually you're not going to have enough Band-Aids to cover it. So if you go into the problem, and I love what you said about just sitting with it, because if we do sit with our anxiety and just invite it in, ask what it's trying to show us, then it will show us what it's here to show us.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes people ask me, well, how do I know when it's my soul talking and not my ego? Right.
Yeah.
And it's my experience that when your soul's talking to you, it's always going to be loving and kind and compassionate. It may be firm, it may be very direct, all right, but it's not going to make you feel less than. Your soul is never going to be cruel or diminishing or take away from the amazing soul who you really are.
Right. It's always a gentle, and I find too, like with our intuition and our soul, it's just kind of there. It's there. But going back to the ego and the fear, it's almost like a story. Like it has a beginning and it has an end and all these little pieces in between. But our soul is just kind of a knowing. It's there. Yeah. And like you said, very loving and yeah.
Right. Loving and not scary. If it's
right.
Scary, it's your ego.
Yeah.
Now, Meghan, how do you feel the universe, spirit guides, and angels nudge us toward our soul's blueprint?
So our guides and our angels and our spiritual team are always trying to help us to go on our soul's blueprint. And lots of times they can give us messages in different ways. One of the ways is by having something appear 3 or more times. So if you see something or hear something 3 times, it's a good indication that that's meant for you. I always notice license plates. License plates will tell you so much. I'm always looking at them. They'll even, you might even see the angel numbers on there, 111, or you'll see, repeating numbers, 444. Those are all messages from angels, kind of nudging you on your way. Another thing is, like I said, mentioned before, conversations that people are having around you. So if you ask the question and some totally random person is talking about something and it happens to be the question that you're asking about, then that's a good indication your spirit guides put them there to help you with that. So.
Yeah, so it's really all about paying attention, right?
Yep. And being open to receiving the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important also to understand that each of us is going to receive information from our soul in different ways. So one of my 8 books is called Unlimited Intuition Now, and it's about the 4 kinds of ways we receive intuition. Claircognizance, which is my gift, which is knowing. Clairaudience, which is receiving information from words or sound. Clairsentience, which is psychic feeling. And clairvoyance, which is receiving images and pictures, which is what Meghan's talking about. So just realize that you're going to receive information in ways that are unique to you. A very good friend of mine who lives in Scotland, he gets guidance, believe it or not, through his inner vision, and he has dots in his eyes. And he said when he asks a question, his dots will line up.
Oh, wow.
The floaters in his eyes are actually messages from his angels, right?
Oh, neat.
So, give yourself permission to really understand the way that your soul is talking to you. And of course, our soul may talk to us in many, many ways, but usually what I find is that there's one particular way that your soul is going to be communicating with you. And what I find is that there's a way that your soul speaks to you, there's a way that your body speaks to you, there's a way that you receive information about your family, and another way that you receive information through your work. So just be open, but like Meghan says, when you notice patterns over and over and over again, then your angels are really trying to get a hold of you, right?
For sure. And it's good to pay attention to your dreams. Lots of times people dream at night. To keep a dream journal, oftentimes there's messages in there too. Just, yeah.
Yeah. So Meghan Olsgard, life coach, talking about our infinite soul blueprint. Any final thoughts for our audience?
Mainly it's just about following your excitement, following your passion, and paying attention to the things around you and how you're feeling. Because a lot of times too, it's about awareness, and we're not always aware that, say for example, something's draining us. You have a conversation with someone and all of a sudden you're drained, you may not realize that maybe that person isn't in alignment with your soul's path. So it's just being open and aware, and like I said, just kind of following your joy and your passion. That's your higher self guiding you.
You've been listening to Meghan Olsgard, life coach. You can find out more about Meghan and her wonderful work at infinitesoulblueprint.com. This is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. Find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. And remember that when you come into alignment with your soul blueprint, you're going to be happy, you're going to be healthy, you're going to feel your life full of meaning, and you're going to be so full of joy that it's going to be easy for you to contribute to the lives of others. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.